Not one.
Back.
No, shut the wine. Oh, you can still back. Over.
That's fine. Prayer. We are going to start with Pledge of Allegiance, and I will lead you in, and then Prince by council. So everyone will please stand and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America, to which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Heavenly Father, great now to meet here together as this great community, that the Spirit be with us and help us to do what's best for the community and the citizens. Give thanks to thee for those who protect us locally and nationally and our armed forces, military personnel, bless them, keep them safe. Thanks again for all that we have. Joy and say this.
Okay, thank you. So just an announcement coming up, everyone's probably aware that this year is our 100th year of Pepper Tomato Days. So we will be getting a newsletter out here within the next few weeks of all of our exciting events we're going to be having. So everyone will want to make sure and be aware of that. Our next city council meeting is going to be held on June 17th rather than the 19th. June 19th is a holiday, and so that will be our budget meeting. It is going to be a public hearing. So if you want to plan on attending, that will be on June 17th at 7:00 p.m. And our meeting on July the 3rd will be canceled due to the 4th of July holiday. So the first thing we have on our agenda is public comments. We are going to limit our public comments to 30 minutes. And so feel free to come up. You have 3 minutes to state your comment. If you'll come up and state your name, and we'll give you time to come up if there are any public comments at this time.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. That added to my 3 minutes. Sure. My name is Bob Dandaway. I live in my address, just for directly, 1303 South,
650 West in Roy. Now, the reason why I'm here, I just want to take a few seconds if I can to just share a thought or two. When I really thought my family would have been here because they are residents of Hooper, and they certainly love this city as much as I do. I love your open space. I like what you've got going here. It's wonderful. And I will tell you, preserve it as best you can. But there's an important piece I want to share with you tonight, if you don't mind. Roy City is struggling this year, as we have for the last couple of years with our budgets. We can't generate enough sales tax to pay for what we need to get paid. These are just keeping up with our expenses. And as a result of that, for the third year in a row, we're going to contemplate another property tax increase to be able to catch up. We're not growing. We're just trying to stay even. And I feel bad. It's disheartening to me that we continue after 3 years still fighting this battle about revenue. And our chief revenue coming in the city is sales and use tax. That is our prime. Get about $9 million a year on that. Now, let me just make it clear. In Roy City in terms of total gross purchases gets about $500 million in sales. $500 million in sales. And 25% of it, roughly around $140 million, comes from 4 businesses. Winco, Harmons, Kent's, and Weinerger's. Every one I just mentioned are grocery stores. I'm telling you, council, mayor, they are cash cows in Roy City. They make us a lot of money every year. My comment to you would be is, please consider what you're about to consider in a few moments about having a Smith's Marketplace in your city. It is a wonderful opportunity. They don't take up a lot of space, but more importantly, they seem to be able to weather the times when people just seem to run low on money. They keep generating revenue, and we make a lot of it. Make it clear, and I'm a data person. In 2024, and I apologize if you think I sneak under the tent, but I look at data. Hooper generated 75 million, a little over $75 million worth of gross purchases. That was yours, and that includes a lot of things. People buying stuff on Amazon, shopping in your stores, whatever they may do. Our 4 grocery stores made $140 million in gross sales. And I'm not even counting all the Amazons, the car lots, and everything else. I suggest to you is there should be a strong consideration to preserve all that you preserve. It's wonderful. It's great. And trust me, I tell people, if you want wide open spaces, come to Hooper, come to West State. But if you want to basically have a business that's going to help you in the long run, it's going to make a difference in terms of having the revenue to sustain what you need to keep the city running. Put a grocery store in here. Put a Smith's Marketplace here, and you will see a significant difference. It makes a difference. Now, I say this in risk of this. Your residents more than likely shop in Roy. And why not? It's right there. But Roy collects that revenue for you. And for me to tell you from a guy like me coming and says, hey, you have to put a store in here, the only suggestion is your people, your residents will shop there. And they're not the only ones. I guarantee you, including my wife, is going to shop at your Smith's. Because that's a great store. And when I tell you this, I'm telling you, some people in my city will basically say, why is this guy doing this? He just cut our sales tax revenue. And it's not about that. It's about providing choices for all of our residents. You share your income with us, we can share our income with you. You will find that will be a great decision for this great city called Hooper. Thanks for the time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? A comment?
Ms. Taylor? For me, the pump station is the starting point. Stuart Adams is not willing to pay a cent for it. However, he can come up with programs that use someone else's money. I don't like it. This proposal is massive. When you drive around this 40 acres, 25 acres of commercial, 15 of homes, if approved, this would become a city of its own, not representing anything that looks like a city. In the independent study that was done, within the 25 acres of commercial, it states that there will be 1,024 parking stalls in this. That's 41 cars per acre, kind of crazy. My opinion would be to deny this, let Stewart move on, quit wasting their time and ours. We're not interested in this, and I think we should deny this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other comments?
Address 5067 South, 53 North. I echo everything that gentleman just said. I'm with him. Stuart wants to put this in, he can fund the whole thing. There's no reason why we as residents have to up our taxes to put this in. He's gonna make all the money off of it. We've talked about this many times. We don't want our city to look like West Finland 4,000. We all know what that looks like. And you bring,
I don't know, sorry.
you bring this in and our city's just like West Haven. But again, if he wants to put it in, he should fund the whole thing.
Any other comments?
Bagley. I live in Hooper. I moved here a year and a half ago from Syracuse. 3 years ago, Syracuse was this little wonderful community. And what happened was Smith and other high-rise housing and we would come to council meetings and they would say, I'm sorry, we'll listen to you, but we've got our minds made up. I don't know that your minds are not made up, but we can have a choice where we want to stay rural and in this lovely community.
Covered. My guess is, my bet is that without the Smiths, within 5 to 7 years, we will be unincorporated Weaver County. We will have a policy.
Marsha Warwood, Elizabeth also. I'm not against the Smith, not. My problem is that I understand that this with the PRA, I don't see where we're gonna get the money to support all that for the amount of years that we have to pay for whatever this company wants to pay for. And so I don't know if you have those numbers and you feel like it's a good thing and that it'll work out and you can see all those numbers and they add up and we say, yep, we can do it and we won't have problems with our budget, go for it. But if you can't do that, if those numbers don't add up, I don't think we should do it because it's not going to get us enough money to do what we need to do right now. We have to wait, I don't know, is it 10 years? I don't really know how many years it is, but anyway, I just would say the numbers don't add up, don't do it.
Anyone else?
Montana Dixon. I've been following this since the beginning. I'm a little bit frustrated with the council and city in regards to this meeting. It wasn't highly publicized. We didn't get a letter in the mail. We got nothing but post on Facebook. That's not, being transparent that you guys promised us. Also, when you decided to come to Stuart Adams, you said, if you don't want us here, just tell us. And we said it then, and we'll say it again. We do not want Smiths here. We do not want Smiths here. Vote your conscience. This is a small town. We want it to stay that way.
Tony today, and I want to add to what my wife and the other gentleman said. We don't want Smiths here. We don't want to pay for Smiths to be here. If they can't self-suffice and do their own, we don't need to suffer from it. And it sounds like Roy City is upside down because of all their businesses and all their confusion is not paying their bills. When the Weber County lady came in with Stuart, she said this would bring anywhere from 50 to 500,000 in sales tax revenue. That won't even bring us one extra sheriff into Hooper. So what good is Smiths? We can't patrol what we got. How are we gonna patrol a Smiths and all the other businesses that come along with it? And why should we pay for their lip funds? It's only to support them. Thanks.
My name's Stan Thurman, I live in the city, I live down here. I don't know who he is, but I'm not part of the we. I'll make my own damn. I will make my own decisions. I'm in favor of Smith, I'm not in favor of paying for it, I'm in favor of the store.
Hi, my name is Mandy Medina Harris. I actually own the property on 4700. And for our family, it is an opportunity for my nieces to have a job in the future. It is an opportunity for us in the community to have a place that we can go and not fly to other cities and to be able to contribute when we make our purchases. We have to think about the long term, folks. My family and my husband, and I already paid over $10,000 to hook up to a sewer pump station that doesn't even exist. We paid that years ago. We were forced by the city with a letter that said you have 3 months to pay before we repaid the street. We've already paid for this. We're just asking for folks to think about more than just the immediate bill that we have. Yes, it is a 25-year commitment or whatever it is. And hopefully the business will contribute to that. But we have to think about the long term. I want Hooper to exist. I don't want to be annexed by Roy. I don't want to be annexed by West Haven. And I certainly don't want to see the monstrosity of those huge developments that are 8 and 10 stories tall. We would love to see smaller homes. We would love to retain some of the view and some of the small community feel. And we're just asking for folks to think short-term and long-term for us and for our future generations. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other comments?
Hi, my name is David Craig. I just want to introduce myself. I live at 5646 West, 4000 South. I know the job that you do is a big responsibility. I just declared my candidacy for District 2. I look forward to the opportunity to serve the people of the city.
Any other comments?
Tracy Woodbourne. My thing is, every time you say anything, it's all over about the revenue, the revenue, the revenue. But if we look at how long it's going to take before we actually get the revenue, I mean, Stuart Adams says they're not going to build until 2027. It's going to take 2 years to build. That's 2029, and it's going to be 5 or 6 more years. So we're looking at 2035. That if the city even gets anything. So I hope that we're looking into that as well. And not, well, as soon as, if we say yes, that next day we're going to start getting revenue, because we're not. Because it's 10 more years. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, seeing none, then we will move on to the agenda. So the next thing is the approval of the minutes dated May 15th, 2025. Council, have you had a chance to review those minutes? Were there any corrections or additions? Okay, if none, is there someone that would like to make a motion to approve? Okay, motion was made by Councilmember Hill. Is there a second? Second was made by Councilmember Maragoni. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the next thing then is the approval of the minutes dated May 27th, 2025. Any additions or corrections to those minutes? If not, is there someone that would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, motion was made by Councilmember Towers. Is there a second?
I'll say.
Second was made by Councilmember Hill. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, so the next thing then on our agenda is the ratification of the check register, which is something we're going to be doing in our minutes from, or excuse me, in our from now on. So do anybody have any questions? This isn't something that we need to have action on. It's just something for your approval. To look through the check register. Any questions, you can reach out to myself, to Morgan, or to Tommy. Any questions on that? On the check register? Okay. Okay, so we will move on then. So the first thing we're going to be discussing tonight then is a rezone request for Terra Strata LLC. And we have a representative here from Terra Strata, if you would like to come up and give us any information you would like to present to us at this time.
Thank you. I appreciate the work of the planning commission, the public, and the city council, and work at the last work meeting. We have a recommendation before you from the planning commission. The recommendation is for PUD for the area around the commercial and commercial lease. Our application was for half-acre lots on the north, quarter-acre lots to the west. And we've agreed to actually modify the quarter acres to a third. We're looking for some guidance there as to what you'd like to see, whether you want to continue the planning commission recommendation of an entire project PUD, or whether you're looking for the application with single family lots against the residential. We're also looking for some clarification. There's some confusion on the master or general plan. And the general plan in this area is having larger lots. The general plan also gives direction, very clarity that there's commercial along 5500. And it then indicates in the general plan that density is supposed to be around the commercial. And you probably would do the entire strip along 5500 as commercial because there just isn't enough demand to do it there up and down the entire range of 5500 like the general plan calls. So the idea, I think, with the general plan of the reapply, which you find a commercial node if you would want to have that commercial happen. When you have the commercial there, then the general plan says that density should be there. So we actually think the PUD follows the general plan very clearly. That is, once you've decided where your commercial is, that the general plan would allow that PUD to happen without opening your general plan yet. There could be another opinion that says, well, this is for larger lots. And, we're looking for direction there. And we kind of think that perhaps because there are some questions about how to move ahead, that you heard from LRB that the sewer lift station is, and you've heard from Mike, is that full process to be able to manage. We think the development agreement would be appropriate. And so if there were any type of motion tonight, we think it ought to be a contingent motion. Actually, a development agreement be put in place that any action done would be contingent on that development agreement. So if it didn't happen the way the city council wanted, the rezone would be that the action would happen. So we're looking actually for contingent action tonight because we think the development agreement is probably essential to be able to answer some of the questions you have. So thank you.
Thank you. Do you have questions, council, that you would like to address to the Terra Strata group tonight?
I think, as we've, somewhat discussed this with you before and looked at the recommendations from our planning commission, you know, I felt real positive about those recommendations, the planning commission. As a city, we did have a commercial corridor coming up 5500 south. And, you know, we hoped that there would be some type of commercial business come into the city. That's why we zoned it that way with our general plan. But along those lines, we also like those businesses that move into Hooper based on what our residents would like. And that we support commercial business coming in, but we would like it to be based on what we've been, you know, told, or we on the general plan before explained to us what the type of commercial business that the residents would like. So along those lines, you know, when the planning commission met, they actually set a recommendation to the council. And, you know, I'd like to discuss those recommendations. I think, Stuart, you've kind of addressed some of them. And, but I'd like to go down through those recommendations and see that maybe the council will have more discussion on that as well. I think it's been made pretty clear here tonight by a few residents that we really don't feel that Hooper City should be paying for a lift station. Developers that have come in before have done that as part of their development. And so, you know, I would not be in favor of any type of CRA or a community reinvestment area that would tax with taxes. Sometimes refer to that as a TIF, like a tax increment financing. You know, in my mind, it's like Hooper City, in a way, provides a no interest loan. And so I would not be in favor of Hooper City providing funding for the lift station for the residents of Hooper City. Planning Commission also talked about the possibility of building the commercial portion of this project first, so that, and I don't know that the entire store would have to be built. We could set some parameters there. Maybe 60 to 70% of the commercial business is put in place before we start the residential buildings. I think that actually diminishes the risk to Hooper City. So that we're not on the hook for something that, when I say on the hook, we're not looking forward to something being built that for some reasons wouldn't end up happening. Another thing and you mentioned, you know, the lot changes along the west side. Of course, we don't have a zone for quarter-acre lots anymore. You agreed to do that with 3-acre lots on the west side, and those will be individual homes and the half-acre lots. Let's see, did I say that right? I think we talked about the 3rd-acre lots on the west side, but half-acre lots on the north side. And then we have the remaining portion of that zone. And I believe our planning commission thought it would be good to have single residents there, you know, single resident homes. We have provisions in our general plan for our patio zone for, they discussed maybe having a 55 and older type facility there. Along with those patio zones, also requires 40% open space. And along with meeting all the ordinances that are currently in place for this type of development. Those are the recommendations that were given by our planning commission. Give us a chance to kind of review those and I don't know if there's any questions that any of the council would have, but my question could, that's kind of the, what we're looking for in this development that will come into the. I don't know if I, council has questions for what I reviewed or.
I think you did a great job. I think Stuart's asking for some direction, and I think that's what we're, gonna do, is give you some direction. And kind of lay our cards out, and it's, will be yours, of course. But I think Dale explained it really well, some of the concerns and things that we want to have take place if this does pass.
What are your thoughts on that? As we've heard and discussed, and I think as we've talked amongst the council, we felt somewhat comfortable, I would think, but like you mentioned, the third on the one side, the half on the other. Like we've mentioned, Trooper City is not financially in any position to really be paying for this sewer lift station. We certainly don't want that to be a financial burden to our residents. So maybe you could give us some insight, and I'll be the first to admit, as I mentioned in our work meeting, I've gone to a lot of meetings learning about these tax increment financing and CRA, and I can't say I'm 100% confident in my knowledge on any of these. So we're in unfamiliar territory. We've never done this before.
So I appreciate that. Yeah. That's the half acre lots and the third acre lots were not a recommendation from the planning commission. The planning commission, as I remember, the recommendation was the entire project to be some type of planned unit development or retirement center or whatever else. But the motion was for the entire project to be, that patio or whatever the recommendation was. It did not, is that correct?
I can't recall off the top of my head, the specifics on that.
Okay, but so for me,
I think that was what we discussed.
yeah, I think I just want verification of that. So that's a recommendation to the planning commission. We're willing to modify that. As we mentioned, I think in the work meeting, and go to recognize that and go to the third acre lots on class and half acre lots. That's how our original application was. It was actually quarter acre lots and half. We've mentioned many times, all the way to class all because the third acre lots and the half acre. So with regards to the financing, that's why I asked, I think continue to be a continuing zone. I think there's some, you mentioned Mary, I'm not sure about the financing. We would never ask for a tax increase to pay for improvements. If that's what's anticipated, that's probably not clear. We talked about that very clearly in our meeting. And I think there were council members they misunderstood that they thought it was a tax increase. That anything with the public that were, we never asked for that. The CRA is not a tax increase, it's simply trying to reallocate some of the existing tax base to be able to pay for infrastructure. And that's what a CRA is. So the reason that we've asked for a contingent reason is to bring some of the experts into the council that can talk about some of the opportunities there are to be able to try to build a station, try to fund it. And that may take some time and take some questions by the council that probably need to be answered, either in a work meeting or otherwise, to bring those experts in. And until it's hard for anybody to make a decision if they don't have the information. And so you probably need to have those people come so they can tell you more information and then you can make a decision. And if you agree with their, and you saw a way forward, then you probably move ahead and put together the development agreement. If you did not, you probably wouldn't, and the rezon wouldn't happen. Does that make sense? So a lot of cities make those type of recommendations contingent on working up with the council. And then I think there was one of the questions about trying to do the project, the commercial first, residential. the resident work meeting very clearly, that doesn't work. And you've heard from other developers that get clear back when, before the current mayor, they came in and there's just not enough volume to pay for a lift station without having more residential. So if you don't allow the residential to happen, you don't get the lift station, we can't pay for the station. If you don't get the lift station, you can't do the work. So we need to do it together. I think the economics show that. My friends had received some assurances that they can be done together. Let's try to specify them basically, I don't think the project would. But that's it.
Yeah, and if I implied or some way, gave the thought out that if there was a tax increase, I didn't mean that. But what taxes we do collect, whether it be our utility tax or what sales tax would be generated from the commercial operation, could go back to pay for this lift station. It wouldn't necessarily increase our taxes, but what tax revenue we currently have would go back to build the lift station. And so if I didn't make that clear, and of course it would require other entities too, like the fire district or the school board, or it's not like it increased the taxes, but taxes that we currently are paying would go to pay for this lift station.
That again, I think would be misunderstood because you can't take the current tax base and pay for and use that to pay for a CRA. The current taxes cannot be used to pay for the CRA. So any taxes you currently leveled cannot be used to pay for the CRA. The increment is the increase. That's the definition of income. So it would have to be only increased taxes that can pay for it. And why would you do it? I mean, why would you take the current tax base? And maybe there's some misunderstanding there, and that's why I think we need to bring the experts in so that they can explain the process and you can make a decision. You may not like it, even understand it, but we probably need to bring them in so they can explain the basis for that. So that you. I think we've had the experts come in. Stephanie Russell, we got 2 or 3 different. So I think we understand the CRA well enough. And yeah, you're right, it's not current taxes. However, our utility tax would also be levied on us as we would be charging some of that, as well as property and sales tax. So yeah, we get that component. So yeah, so I just comment that the Smiths never came, you wouldn't have that tax anyway. So it would only be if the Smiths came, that additional tax could be used. They don't come, you don't have tax.
Okay, is there any other questions that anyone has at this time?
I just wanted to make a statement on the LRD study. And we sometimes overlook that study. We spent a lot of time on that. We waited for that. Tried to examine it the best we could, but correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, but I think at the end of the day, of the study, we wanted to know how much taxes Hooper City was going to benefit from this entire project. So from what we could gather, we came up with $107,000 per year from sales tax, property tax, and utility tax for the future properties and buildings that would be built. $172,000 per year over the next 25 years, correct? I did some calculations because I looked at it too, and 172,000 divided by 3,000 roughly homes in Hooper is $57 per home per year. Property tax increase. Doesn't seem like much per home per year to offset this project we're talking about. So economic, like we talked about in the pre-meeting, the economic benefits, Hooper City would benefit the least Weaver County would benefit, the state of Utah would benefit, Hooper City would benefit the least financially of those three entities. And so, that's something as council we haven't talked about was the property tax increase, because we haven't had property tax ever since the first city's been in existence. We have one that was put in back when we were in the county, but we've never increased property tax. So that was just a conversation, we had some data that we threw out there, 172,000 a year. About around 3,000, almost $57 per year. And so that LRB study really kind of opened my eyes a little bit. I don't know about anybody else, but that I thought would be a lot more substantially more. And for Mayor Dandoy to come and present that data, that was, welcome. I mean, I'm glad he came. That was great to hear. He really outlined components. He briefly said something, but he left out internet sales. That's the number one tax generating thing, I bet, in the city, because it's number one in our city. Granted, we don't have a grocery store, but we collect $1.3 million a year per city on internet sales. And so that's the cash cow. I read this in the way as well, so.
Just kind of have a little bit of thoughts on that with the LRB city, because I actually talked to Jason Birmingham at a separate meeting. And he said, one thing, and he did say this, but I'm not sure if he stressed this quite enough. It was worst case scenario. So the very worst case scenario is if the lift station ends up costing $3+ million, and we only do the very least, every expense, it would be, and you're right, Brian, with the number that you mentioned. Best case scenario, though, shows a lot of different story than that. And before we ever started, given some advice that I should call around to some of the other Smiths and other cities and ask them what they were getting. And this one's not a Smiths, but just a little bit to compare. So Plain City was in a similar position that we were in. They really, when we talk about this, back in the day, we used to have a grocery store. We used to actually have two of them. And now we don't have any, but Smiths, their mayor that's currently serving said when he was elected mayor, they had already approved to do the Kens, and they were getting about $200,000 a year in sales tax. And then he said, now we get about $1.4 million from their Kens and their surrounding business. When I spoke with Kaysville, who has a Smith's marketplace, which would be comparable probably in size to ours, maybe a little bit larger. They end up getting about $1.8 million. So when I called West Point and they didn't give me the exact amount, said it would significantly increase their sales tax. North Ogden has one. They said it brought in a significant increase. They didn't know what they would do if they didn't have a Smith's. Heber City that only had a Smith's, but now it's a Smith's marketplace, said that it had brought in $200,000 more when it was a marketplace and it was Smith's. So I know when you look at this, and I hear the comments and it is right. So we have to start somewhere. We are not next year going to be getting this revenue from Smith's. We're probably not even within 2 years going to be getting this revenue from Smith's. But every year we put this out, the longer it's going to take. And we have not had anybody else that has came. If another smaller grocery store would have came, or a mom and pop grocery store would have came, why aren't they here? And they're not. We haven't had anybody else that has wanted to with this high quality of a store as a Smith's marketplace. Change isn't easy. I lived in Hooper almost 70 years, and change isn't easy. But we have to sustain our city some way. We really do. We have to somehow be able to get some income coming into our city. And you're right, Councilmember. We can raise property tax. We can. But how much property tax are we going to have to raise it in order to possibly make up $1.5 million? We're not just talking like you mentioned, and all these are things that we really do need to consider. And we're this. It's been years since we've had a grocery store in Hooper, and none of us sitting up here were ones that were affiliated with getting that started. So these are important decisions, and, you know, I was want to comment, and as has already been said, our planning commission unanimously recommended to the city council to approve this rezone. And as we talked about in our work meeting, there are some, you know, we can't necessarily even approve the rezone tonight, but what we can do is we need to actually have some kind of guidelines we can be telling Smith so they know even where to go from. You know, before our staff ends up spending a lot of time working on things, before they spend a lot of time. And I think that's what we talked about in our work meeting, is that we need to be able to come up with some kind of recommendations that we can give them as far as what we would like to see.
I would just like to add that this falls within my district. We should have Hooper and my district graded. If it was just a grocery store, you know, but it's what comes along with it. And it's all additional housing, which I've had a lot of comment from individuals about that being great. This part of Hooper where it's located is pretty much rural still with very small subdivision lots. For me, I have to look at what's best for who I represent. And what's best for that area. I understand that we have the road, which is called SR 177 now, that will be eventually coming through. And I know that will change the scenery of our area. In fact, my home may be gone. I don't know. But the fact is that if it were just a grocery store, I would be looking at this entirely different than with all of the housing. And that's something that I have to take into consideration when I make it. So, and none of us are making decisions lightheartedly. This has been on our minds and everything a lot. You know, I'm sure if you can work something out, types of housing and things, then that's something maybe we can look at. But you know, it's just weighs heavy on my mind. And I just wanted to let everybody know that we're really conscious about what's going in. Thank you.
Is there any other discussions among the council, like we talked about in the work meeting? Then what we would be doing is probably making some kind of motion. You correct me, and what it is we need to do tonight.
Well, I think both the city and developers are entitled to have some guidance here. And I think as a motion, if you are in favor of moving forward with the development, the understanding is there has to be a whole lot of discussion that takes place on financing and possibly on the size of the houses, EV versus patio houses. Some of that's still up in the air a bit. But conceptually, that you're in favor of the project, if you are, then I think that allows the city and the developer to move forward, start to develop an agreement. We have some changes that need to be made, in my opinion, in the general plan and the code. Those are easy to make. You can make them very quickly in one meeting, but they need to be drafted and put together so that you're able to do that. And if you give us the guidance to go ahead and do it, then that's what we'll do. So that would be my thought. If you are wanting to move forward with the project, and let's have a motion that says that you are in favor of moving forward, the city taking whatever action needs to be taken to try to come to terms on financing and come to lot sizes and to make the changes needed in the code so that they can take place.
Okay, any questions on that then? So is there someone on the council that would like to make a motion reflecting what Reed said?
Okay, I'll do my best. Because as I mentioned, I think from general plan, we welcome business to come in to Hooper. But it had to be according to the what we want, what our residents want. So I'll try to work through a motion here with some notes and then ask council members to make better or add to or take away as needed, but my first thought is there would be no CRA, a community reinvestment area, or any other type of tax increment financing, any other type of gift. I don't know how to explain that, that would not be part of this, project in building the lift station. Most of the commercial portion of the project would be completed. There could be some percentages placed there. I'm not sure just how we'll do that, but the commercial part of this, again, to diminish the risk to the city, that's what we're looking for, is a business, not to just build more homes. So we ought to focus on building the commercial part of this project first before the homes. As we mentioned, the 30-acre lots, well, we already talked about that. Part of the motion would be that there'd be 30-acre lots on the west side, half-acre lots on the north side, leaving the remaining portion to be decided on. And the planning commission, they recommended that there be a patio zone placed there, which would require 40% of that zoning to be an open space. It could be a 55 or older type residence, but we'd have to decide on that. But at least there would be single residents. There would be single patio type homes. And part of the mention, I guess, too, is we need to fill out an application to do the rezone, so that we need to have in place before we can approve anything. But again, this would be a motion to approve in concept, a conceptual, a store with those provisions in place.
Okay, we've had a motion made by council member Flowers. Is there a second?
Oh, let me just add a piece to that. I know Stuart was concerned about that, the build out, the commercial build out before the residential. In the study with LRB, they give a pretty good time frame of the build out that I think we'd be comfortable with. A lot of the commercial was built prior to the residential. I think if they followed that build out. Because I imagine LRB got this information from here on the build out. So I would reference on that number 2 that they follow the build out that's illustrated in fiscal impacts by LRB. That's a long motion, I know, but
It's a very long motion.
That's it. Kenny Perkins.
Yeah, I think, so we'll go on. I think that, like you mentioned, that this motion is made with a lot of conditions. We have a lot of work to do, and they don't believe in the interim. So it's not like, you know, this is just a blanket approval of whatever, but it is with conditions of working with city council and developers agreement, making sure that everything is done at what city council feels. And I don't know, Morgan, did you get that down?
Yeah, a little bit, yes, but I'll listen back to it a few times.
Okay.
I got it.
Maybe you should have said like number 1. No,
It's okay.
right, no tax increment finance.
What you could probably just put like build out and follow LRB's recommendations. That would sure something like that.
So what I have, if you want, so I have no CRA confirmed, yes. Commercial portion to be done first, reference to the fiscal impact study by LRB. 1/3 acre lots on the west side, 1/2 acre lots on the north. Other areas would be up for discussion. Rezone application to be done.
My patios,
Okay.
you know, so it is single housing residential lots.
An idea there would be a 55 or older community or not necessarily, again, moderate income, whatever, affordable housing. That is how we roll that.
Okay,
Not making this very easy for you.
no, but it's okay.
But most importantly, that it's single residence, it's not under the ordinances that we have for it. So.
Okay. And then a developer agreement in place. Did I miss anything? Okay. Got it.
Okay, so we have a motion made by Councilmember Flowers. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There is a second made by Councilmember Wilcox. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, no discussion then. Have a vote. All in favor, say aye. Okay, any opposed? Okay. Okay, so are we can have another motion made then? Is there someone else that wants to make a different motion? Concerning sense? Okay, this motion was pretty much just to be able to give them some guidelines and start working.
I guess I'm a little trying to make a motion or just a I think, I like to do things in order. But I think way before we even get to this, I mean, we're going today to make a rezone request. I mean, number one, we can't do the rezone request without having a general plan open and closed and our general land use map corrected to allow a rezone to happen. So this request shouldn't even come to Culver City tonight and then been on our agenda because it says rezone request. I mean, I know we've tailored that and tried to fix that a little bit, but this discussion about no CRA and the type of housing and all these other different things should have happened long before we come to this meeting for approval of this. And so my recommendation would be to have another work to iron out the details if we're in approval, if we're in agreement as a council, and taking the planning commission recommendations and coming to an agreement. Are we going to move forward or not? Long before we tiptoe around a rezone request, it's not going to happen. If that makes any sense. Hopefully it does, because I'm just hesitant to approve something that's on an agenda that's really not on the agenda. That makes sense.
Yeah, I guess my purpose of the motion was to give some direction as to what our planning commission had recommended to us, the council, and then if we as a council felt that was a good plan. And so I really pretty much just outlined what had been recommended to us from the planning commission. And as we talked earlier, recognizing that we do have to have this other step in there. As far as the rezoning things, for this commercial business.
I mean, and I appreciate the motion. I think we've made some clarity with the group. And I think I'd like to know, maybe in a work meeting, how they feel about all of that, all those conditions. Are they okay with not having a CRA? Are they, okay with the patio homes? Are they? Because we can't move forward as a group, both sides, until we know everybody's 100% on board.
Sure. And, that I think that's exactly the point. Then now we kind of put the ball back in their court to say, okay, are we willing to follow the recommendations that Culver City Planning Commission and council has given us? Is this something we want to pursue or not? Rather than it gives them some direction so you can decide whether they want to move something forward.
And so I don't think it would either. This,
No.
this one, direction. There's directions, it was guidance, it was, are we on the same page? I think a motion needs to be voted on or approved, first approved tonight. So.
As you're all aware, we did have that meeting, that word meeting on May 27th, when that was our task, because before we had them come, we had that meeting and we were supposed to give them some direction. So when they came. So if I'm understanding you right, Councilmember Hill, not that you're saying you don't necessarily agree for them to start moving forward. You're saying, how do we make a motion? This states as a motion on our agenda is not what it's saying. I guess what we're looking for tonight is we need some kind of, they want some kind of direction. They're going to move forward and yes, you're welcome to.
So, and I kind of like the idea of the process. If you're gonna open the general plan, then you probably would do that, okay? And that could be done. And we are willing to, I mentioned before, that there's a lot of things to discuss. And we want to make sure you're counting both of those. And if work meetings needed, we be happy to come to another meeting and we need to talk about those. Especially, we're talking about a housing product. And there are little vacancies to what you're, whether it's, we've seen some really great senior housing, but some of those are equivalent homes, some of them are separate homes. I don't know, it'd be nice to be to bring some product in and actually see what you think or have those discussions. So yeah, we're open to that. Again, trying to let you make the best decision. Our thought was whatever we did, it would be subject to a development agreement that could address those type of things. And so I think we're in agreement with that. It's just the process of how you want to move forward. I want you to.
More questions, Stuart, while you're up there. Are there any of those items that Dell lined out that you would have an issue with?
Yeah, I think again, I'd like to make sure just one more time that all the items, both the CRA and make sure that it probably is, but I'd like to have an opportunity to at least talk to you about it one more time. And I would also like to make sure that we have the process of being able to fund a lift station and to see how that revenue comes in with residential and commercial combined. And if it's an LRD study, then probably, I'm unfamiliar with, I can't remember what they said. So to say, yeah, I agree to it right now, I'd like time to look at it and see if those numbers are rational or whether they're conceptual. And just as that time to look at it. I mentioned before, it's gonna take everything that we can do to build that lift station economically, and we plan to do that. Because the project doesn't work without, but we'd like to know what we could do to help. So that's part of the process. Yeah, the two are very difficult. They will do everything we can to try to see this. Other questions I can see.
Well, in all honesty, I have been able to be to a lot of those meetings because of work situations. And so this might sound really naive, really stupid, and that's okay, but you can tell me. But in my head, when I first heard, about the discussion about the grocery store and different things like that, my thought was, why does it have to be go big or go home? Why can't it just be a smaller market? No gas pumps, yes, the residential and different things like that around it. But in our area, do we need that monstrosity of a marketplace, or can it be something, like not as large? I don't know, like that one up in Heber doesn't seem like it's as large, but I'm just kind of curious. I just don't.
And you're asking something from one person, and we're here as a developer.
Right.
We have a user that's come to us, and I'm a little tentative even though their word's gone out and their name's gone out. So I don't want to speak for them.
Right.
But they're interested in this area. If another product was interested, perhaps it would be a different product.
Okay.
The product that they have, and it is the same as the one at Heber, same size.
Yeah.
Change there, but I'd rather them speak for themselves. I'm a little tentative. They have an interest, so we've shown up. If somebody else has an interest, perhaps they show up.
Okay.
Since who's been here, so it's not that we've gone out trying to have factors.
No, that was the question I had, so thank you for clearing that up.
Mark, I guess is driving.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so I guess again, back the question to you there, what is it then? Because I know they want to have things so they know what they're moving forward on. City staff like have something, so, and even if, again, so what, like, what should we be then coming up with?
Those concepts. We can start on what games you made, but it certainly has to be stuff to work out. That always would. Yeah, I think there's no question, there's gotta be a way to devise, this station. You're not gonna have anything happen, with it. That's the benefit, so how you get them. There was a question about small market, well, small market's not gonna be able to afford to put in this station. So somehow in this discussion, you've got to find a way, on that maybe so small.
The one thing I was gonna mention is, the only thing we have. The only thing we have on our agenda is the rezone request. So we're kind of limited to what we do tonight as far as I'm aware of, as far as agenda, so. We asked the agenda request to do it. So that was all that we had, for discussion.
I think we understand where we're headed.
So what you're saying then, we don't necessarily need to have a motion, we do need to have a motion to give them some, just some direction that we are all in favor. I guess I'm still. Okay.
Any specifics on it, the motion that everybody's gonna agree on.
Sure.
So let's just for everything until you can come up with something. Good.
So everybody, so maybe something like I mentioned before, about when a person came and wanted to buy that piece of ground, then council still is saying, though, that they are comfortable with the project. We just don't have all the specifics yet of what everybody is comfortable with.
Well, that's what it sounds to be like, I don't, so that.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. And I guess making the motion and getting the results we did, I think, should better understand this, the direction we have.
Okay, so what we will do with this then is we will plan another work meeting. And then maybe this, then from what everyone I feel like is saying, that they are comfortable with this project. We just have a lot of specifics that we still need to work out as far as with this project. And a lot of those specifics probably go along with the developer's agreement when we're doing that. As far as what the borough wants to see and what you want to see. Does that give you enough? Do you feel like? Okay. Any other questions anybody from council has for them? Okay, thank you. We will get with you then and get another meeting scheduled and we can all go through then more of the specifics of, and I think they gave you enough as far as, you know, probably the housing sizes and things. Okay, thank you. Okay, the next thing we have on our agenda then is a discussion and a motion, approval of a purchase of an emergency preparedness trailer. So I'm going to turn some time over to Councilmember Rupp to explain.
So in the work meeting, we discussed this pretty good, but we had purchased a trailer for emergency preparedness cash box, which Weaver County highly recommends that each city in the county have essential emergency supplies on hand in case, you know, they can't get here to help us. So Dave Harris went out and found a trailer that suits our needs. It's red, it's big, got a lot of amenities to it as far as power and hookups to the generators. And so he went ahead, I told him, I said, we need to, you know, approve the funding, but he didn't want the trailer to be sold. So he went and bought it with his own money. And is just thinking he has not titled it, so it'll be titled in the city. So he paid $12,500 for it. It's got about $100, down, another 25 for this insurance, so 12,000. 25. And, these funds would be coming when we initiated the utility energy tax. As a council, we set aside 5% of that for emergency preparedness, so that's where this money will be coming from. So we need to vote, to buy that trailer from Dave Harris, so he doesn't resell it, because I think could be great. So we're gonna have it at Tomato Days. Hopefully it'll be all stocked up. I don't know yet, but, we'll definitely create it. What's that? Sure. Yeah. So do we need a motion of this?
Yes, we do. We do need a motion. There is money, as you mentioned, in the budget because, but when I spoke with our financial treasurer, because this wasn't a line item that we did have, then we need to approve, and I agree. I think this would be a great addition to have with our city. And we have discussed this in work meetings, so we need to have a motion of the approval of the purchase.
I'll make the motion that we approve the purchase of the emergency preparedness trailer with the payback of Mr. Harris and moving forward.
I'll second.
Do you got the amount or no?
I don't think we necessarily do because it was budget. Okay, so we have a motion that was made by Councilmember Northbrook. A second was made by Councilmember Maragoni. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that carries. The next thing then, we need to have a motion. This will be a roll call. We talked about this before, which is ordinance number 2025-02. And this ordinance is amending the existing subdivision fencing ordinance. Currently, our ordinance says that in order, part of our ordinance, when it's a land separation fence, and that ordinance stated that it would need to be approved by city council. Those subdivisions no longer come to city council, and so all this is just a verbiage change from city council as it is approved through the planning commission. So again, we have that ordinance. Needs someone to make the motion to approve that.
I'll make the motion to approve ordinance 2025-02, amending the existing subdivision fencing ordinance.
That motion was made by Councilmember Hill. Is there
I'll second that.
a second made by Councilmember Powers? Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Oh, this has to be a sorry, roll call. Okay, we'll start with you, Councilmember Hill. Councilmember Northrup. Councilmember Maragoni. Councilmember Powers.
Aye.
Okay, our next one then is a motion roll call vote. It's resolution number 2025-01, resolution approving an interlocal agreement for the provision of technical services. We are one of the cities with the Weaver County Sheriff's Department. Part of that contract includes this, but with that, they have to have a resolution that we are doing an agreement with them. It's not an increase in our contract price, included in the contract price, but it is something agreement. So if someone wants to make that motion.
I'll make the motion that we go ahead with the transition agreement, interlocal agreement, provision of technical forensic services, resolution number 2025-01.
The motion was made by Councilmember. Is there a second? Second made by Councilmember Maragoni. There's also any discussion on that motion before we call it the roll vote. Okay, this time we'll start at the other end. Councilmember Powers. Councilmember Maragoni. Councilmember Northrup. Councilmember Hill. Councilmember Wilcox. Okay, thank you. Motion carries. Okay, the last thing on our agenda then is discussion. Back in February, there was a motion that was tabled at the shifting of the mayor powers. And so we said at that time that we would revisit this in 3 months. And so our 3 months are here. We have a discussion on what have done or are doing or any plans.
I'll go ahead and start that discussion. So, Councilmember Hill, motion to have a closed door meeting. And, that has not taken place yet. We've had a couple of opportunities presented for us to have them. One of them was canceled because of the format, that was displayed to us. So what we need to decide now, we still need to have that discussion amongst ourselves, to resolve these issues that we have. So we need to decide at the council sometime next week to actually do that. So, most of you, so I don't know if it's Tuesday night, Monday, Tuesday night, and Wednesday is not good. So to fulfill the motion by Ryan Hill, we need to, in fact, do that. So we need to pick a day. Those Tuesday work.
So that was one thing too, because you mentioned about the format, because, as that motion was made by Councilmember Hill, and one thing was motioned about myself, Councilmember Flowers was actually my brother, actually meeting and trying to do things. So we did have a closed door meeting. It was recommended by our legal counsel to have a mediator there. They gave us some names and one was selected that was a retired judge, and that never. We did then have 2 meetings that were scheduled, but I scheduled certain meetings that ended up being canceled as well. So I guess my question is, what format is that? You said it was recommended we do.
In the motion, Brian, because I went back and listened to it a couple of times. We did talk about mediation prior to the motion. There was never mediation, and the format that was presented to us was not going to work. So I was told we would be in one room, the mayor would be in another, and the mediator would go back and forth. And we're not okay with that because that was not part of the agreement. So Brian and I have spoken. I think the 6 of us need to get together. If we get the attorney there, that's great, but we don't need a mediator. I think we can handle this for ourselves. And, just to give some clarity on what we're talking about here, what we're going to discuss. We can't get into details, but there are some significant budgetary and employee management issues that need to be brought up. There's some ordinance violations that are well documented that need to be brought up, and also litigation that paying for that the mayor's involved with. So those are the items that we need to talk about and iron out. I hope we can. But I think the 6 of us without a mediator can handle that. If our attorney's present, great. Yeah, I think before we move on, if that was Ryan's motion, I did not vote for the motion. I was the only one that declined, but out of respect for the council, we need to go through with that bill, because there's definitely some choppy waters to figure some things out. We just do. We owe it to ourselves and our residents to do that. So I'm proposing Tuesday night. I don't know what the rest of you can do. I don't know what time.
So I wasn't aware when you said that about the mediator. That was not my understanding that I received from the mediator. From what I understood, and also, as I legal counsels, it's always good to have a mediator there, because if not, it's just 6 people giving opinions that there really isn't anybody that is biased or an outsider maybe that can listen and give some recommendations. So I'm not familiar with that room, with me in one room and you in another. That was, I'm not sure where that came from, because that was never. Yeah, I don't know that. Yeah, I'm not sure who that was came from. From the retired judge or anything the attorney mentioned, that was never ever. So I think in order to accomplish, and when we talk about this, I think there's a lot of things that, you're right, things that always need to be worked on, and I think that is, and I think there's some things we're trying to do with that, and right from the beginning was familiar, was comfortable in having a closed door meeting. Like I mentioned, we had scheduled that and everyone knew, had been told, and then it was like the day before that those ended up being canceled. But it's a Tuesday, but again, so you're saying you do not want to be at all, anybody there that's a neutral person?
No, thank you.
What do you like? Monica? I'd like to, would you?
Sounds like something else we want to work out, like.
I know when we talked about this before, and Brandon had, or their legal counsel at the time, had given 3 names of retired judges that he said he thought would be good. And sometimes anytime when you're working out, nice to have somebody else there that can maybe listen and say, okay, I think this sounds, yes, maybe that was the basis, I think, of that recommendation of having someone else there, that can actually give some opinions on. So that was why we went in that direction to begin with that.
Motion. Wait. Maybe table in motion, just. Never talked about it again, so. We said we would discuss it again in 90 days, and today is 90 days. And that was one of the stipulations I wanted to take place, was for us to meet in a format where we could work out our differences. There's no sense moving forward as a council and mayor if we have not disagreements, but differences to the point where we can't get anything done. It's just really the word from that kind of a bad. So that was one of my tools, if you will, to alleviate shifting that bigger powers, and so I recommend that. Bryce, obviously, discussion just today. If we can meet as the 6 of us and have a civil conversation, I say we do it. If we need it, because we can't have a civil conversation, then let's get a meeting. So I have confidence in all of us that we can do it amongst the 6 of us. So there's just simple questions to answer. I have a question about this, what's the answer? What's the solution? When we walk out that door, we need to put it all behind us. And again, we're gonna have to revisit this motion. Either approve it or deny it. You can't just let it go away. And so that was my intent, was to create that. Adam solve the issues before we got this motion. So, then that worked for me.
And that's my invitation. I think you're better off with just a group of. But if you really get to the point that you need to be there, I'd have to come, but I don't know if I can have the group that you need to put it out, I think. But I don't want to say I won't come. Correct.
Okay, so everyone's agreeable to that one. This coming out this Tuesday, which is June 10th, day is 7:15. And it will be a closed door meeting. With that, we have to, okay, let's see. We have to make sure we get that noticed. So you can notice that Monday. And so what we will do with that meeting is we come here first. It has to be an open meeting first, and then there has to be a motion to move that to a closed door meeting. And then we will go to a closed door meeting. At that time, when we're done with the closed door meeting, recognizing that said in a closed door meeting cannot be discussed anywhere but in that closed door meeting. So nothing can be or else to any person. And after that, Then that's, we close that meeting and come back to an open meeting and
So in that meeting, there are final decisions that have been made from the meeting. So you can talk about things, you can discuss whatever you want, but a decision has to be made. Going to make a decision, so that has to be done.
Okay.
And you do need to report.
yes. So, are you all okay, Morgan? Are you come that night, Tuesday at 7:15? Okay, okay. We will plan on doing that. Okay, that's the full session. Being there on the agenda. So we need a motion to adjourn. Okay, that motion was made by Councilmember Maragoni for a second. Okay, second made by Councilmember. Well, all in favor? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Yes.